Hey, everyone out there in internet land, here again to talk about things going on in the world around us. And this has been going on for a few weeks, but I think it's high time I say something about it. But by example, by weeks, actually, let's say months, because Florida has completely reopened their economy, at least for the most part, excluding uh, places like Disney World, which has decided to at least remain somewhat limited in their capacity and require masks for their visits. But Florida has been basically completely open since summer of 2020. And they have remained fairly low in the outbreak level. Florida-wise, they are still 30th among hospitalizations, yet they've been open since August. And it took vaccine rollout for states to start following Florida's suit. Now there are 13 states that have rescinded um, Joe Biden's mask requirement, national mask federal requirement, or whatever. And those states are Alaska, Arizona, Idaho, Montana, North and South Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa, no, Indianapolis, Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas, Tennessee, Missouri, Georgia, South Carolina, Florida. These are all the states that are no longer requiring masks. And other states have followed in Florida's footsteps regarding um, regarding mask not completely reopening. I'm saying Texas, by best example, which is the second most populous state. So now the second and third most populous states have moved to 100% reopening. And following Texas's action of deciding to reopen, Joe Biden had his comments. Joe Biden decided to call all Texans Neanderthals in a speech. He said, "It's just Neanderthal." Well, and I can't even do a good enough Joe Biden impression, so I'm not even going to try. But he said, it's Neanderthal thinking to think that this is a good idea. Um, Comment on that. Was it Neanderthal thinking to try and get people back to work because people have to pay bills? People have to take care of their families. Is it Neanderthal thinking to want people to be able to feed their families? Is it Neanderthal thinking to see the writing on the wall? You have a state, the third most populous state, Florida, is 30th in hospitalizations, and they've been open for approaching 6 months, uh, probably more now. And you're gonna call the state that um, wants to have people take care of themselves. Um, you're gonna call them Neanderthals, and it of course extends beyond that. There are multiple layers to the criticism Texas is receiving from within. Beto O'Rourke, who obviously is in the state of Texas, uh, said that Governor Abbott is signing the death warrants for Texans by reopening, yet forcing Texans and people all over the United States out of business to um, fend for themselves and somehow be able to survive. Wasn't signing death warrants? Was it death warrants when Governor Cuomo sent COVID patients into uh, elderly living places, and which led to the deaths of 16,000 people? Uh, under that, by the way, which was immediately underreported by as much as 50%, because Governor Cuomo didn't want people to catch on to him actually doing that. And he did all that while not using the ship Donald Trump sent over there for him into New York City, and not using all the medical centers that Donald Trump built using the National Guard in areas of New York City like Central Park. Those laid those stayed completely empty for months, or the entire time they were up. The ones in Central Park stayed empty. And there were even faith-based organizations that made hospitals, pop-up tent hospital things that weren't even used by Mayor de Blasio's excuse, because they didn't he didn't want people to have their religious expression imposed upon by people giving them medical services. So all that bullshit went on during Cuomo's entire tenure as governor and de Blasio's entire tenure as mayor during this entire COVID run. But there wasn't a single peep from anyone on the left about 16,000 debt. But Mayor Abbott decides to reopen Texas and follow the likes of Mayor DeSantis of Florida and decide to get people back to work. And now they're Neanderthals who are signing death warrants for their people. We have grown wise to the politics here, and there's another layer to it, which is another layer of absurdity, which is there was a on oh well, this one was last year, but this kind of ties to this. Ohio Democratic Representative Marcia Fudge, funny last name, said that reopening certain businesses was racist because the country clubs and spas weren't reopening. So it was racist because it primarily affected Black and brown people. Because Black and brown people don't hang out in the country clubs. That level of race baiting and Marxist division is not foreign to people who pay attention. But it's when it's used to the level that Democratic Rep Fudge used, it becomes blatantly obvious to even the layman that race is used as an excuse to push political ideology. And the mantra that reopening is racist because it primarily affects minorities, because minorities do work in these areas that are reopening, is so just shallow and ignorant in thinking that the delivery would land, that people are finally, especially in conservative areas and states like Texas, just putting their hands up in the air like, I did the 2 weeks, I did the mask for a year, the vaccine has been coming out, and Fauci even has been saying that if 50% of us get the vaccine, everything will be sunshine and rainbows. Well, we've been doing all that, and some existence of the lockdown is still present in states like California and New York. And people on the left, like Beto O'Rourke, are pointing fingers at people who want to, or have had enough of this lockdown sham. And this, of course, extends into a whole nother conversation about vaccines that I'm going to have on my podcast, which I will share in the link below. But the whole point here is what's kind of going on now is there's obviously a huge divide happening in this country. And it ties to philosophically how people lie on the political spectrum. Really, obviously, there's a whole spectrum of different political ideologies, but ultimately, whether you're conservative or liberal comes down to, look, by leftist, I mean liberal, by liberal, I mean leftist, conservative or far leftist, it really just comes down to where your trust lies. especially in the pandemic with this whole situation, this is where things become abundantly clear politically. Either you are a conservative and you think the government should get out of our lives and the government should have no say in whether or not a business should open or close. The government should obviously be somewhat fiscally responsible, and the government just needs to be minimally involved in our lives. More and more people are going here to the conservative ideology, which is everything I just mentioned. The leftist ideology is the government needs to do everything. The government needs to make sure everyone is fed in this country. The government needs to make sure no one gets a virus. The government needs to shut down any business that doesn't fall within certain ideology that fits their narrative or agenda. And that extends into cancel culture. The government needs to protect children from people like Pepe Le Pew and certain books written by the likes of Dr. Seuss. And we need to protect society from the oppressive nature of people like Aunt Jemima for being on their products. Aunt Jemima, by the way, who started her own business, put herself on the syrup. So I don't know how it's racist that a person can be on the face of the product they created. All that to say is the great divide happening now in this country is extending into obviously segregation of state ideologies. What's the word that happened during the Civil War? Civil War all started because for the decades, more division was happening among the country. Certain states wanted slaves, certain states didn't want slaves. This is not at all in the defense of slaves, but it's just pointing out that a civil war happened because almost half the country wanted to keep slaves, and just over half the country wanted to free the slaves, which is a beautiful thing. But it's starting to happen now with the masks. Again, 13 states, aforementioned earlier, want to remove mask requirements, and the states that want to stay down are calling the states that want to reopen Neanderthals, and states that want to reopen people who don't care about the lives of their people, of their citizenry, meanwhile protecting the likes of their own, with who like aforementioned Governor Cuomo. And this, what's going to happen now with this whole mask thing, it's going to be a bait and switch. It's going to go from masks to vaccines. You already see restaurants in areas like Los Angeles and Southern California, which have signs up already on their doors saying no one can enter who hasn't been vaccinated. That, of course, is medical discrimination and illegal, but because it's in a liberal area like Los Angeles, it's likely that there won't be any legal recourse for this restaurant opening. Luckily, there is a recourse called the free market, and that's what needs to happen now all across this country. We need to stop supporting businesses who are presenting draconian ideals, and obviously, if you don't want the vaccine, don't get it. And if you don't want to wear a mask, make it known that you don't want to wear a mask. It's kind of where we're at. Support people who have had enough of this sham. Support Texas, support Florida. If you're in California or New York, Chicago, and you're just tired of this sham, why not move? Why not move? Anyways, that's it for me. Again, I have another video with my podcast producing partner, and I discuss vaccines and this bait and switch I just talked about. But yeah, check it out in the link below, and more about all that jargon and stuff coming from. Talk to you guys later.